kick the field goal. It'll be Jason Changel out of the hold of Mesco. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Wednesday morning. It is a beautiful day here in Hamilton, Ohio. Our Chatterbox Studios, we welcome you to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We come your way 10 a.m. to high noon, Monday through Friday Eastern Time. You can watch us on YouTube, Chatterbox Sports page. We also stream live, although not today, on Facebook. We've been having some technical issues over there, but you can find us here most days on the Chatterbox Sports page. If you'd like to join us in podcast form, just simply search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman and you're dialed in. You may remember we talked last week about starting pitchers in baseball. If they have 32, 34 starts over the course of a season, they'd have about 8 or 9 where they have great stuff. They'd have another 15, 16 where their stuff's kind of right in the middle and they got to battle to succeed in a game. And then there will be, 7, 8, 9, depends on the guy, where you just don't have it. Well, for the first time this young season, Nick Lodolo fell into that latter category. The talented Reds left-hander simply did not have it last night. The numbers bear that out. 4 2/3 innings, 12 hits, allowed 8 runs. Tampa Bay was on everything Lodolo threw up there in a 10-0 win over the Redlegs. The two teams have split the first 2 games of the series. Rubber game today. We also talked about how the Reds needed to make a change in their number 4 and 5 spots in the rotation. Those guys weren't getting it done. Well, Connor Overton has already been replaced by Luke Weaver. Weaver will make his first start this weekend. And today, Luis Cessa is being replaced in the rotation by Levi Stout. No, that's not Levi Strauss. Paul, you didn't even know who Levi Strauss was.
I knew the name.
See, that's the difference again. Your generation, Casey, you guys, highbrow, got to wear a certain kind of blue jean. It's kind of the hip thing.
It's true.
Levi Strauss was the first manufacturer of blue jeans in the world. And I mean, they're still the best blue jeans in the world.
Hence the name Levi's? Yes.
Hence the name Levi. But Levi Stout is the 14th ranked prospect in the Reds organization, and today the Pennsylvania native makes his major league debut. 25-year-old right-hander came over in that big deal with Seattle a year ago. He's 0-1 at Louisville so far this season. First pitch for 10-40, and as we like to say, boys,
tickets are available.
Thank you. Just before the game last night, this was really good news for Reds fans. The team announced that Hunter Green has been given a 6-year, $53 million contract. Get this. Green is the only player on the team with a guaranteed contract for next season. Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers became the 117th pitcher in baseball history to reach 200 wins in a career last night. The 35-year-old future Hall of Famer beat the Mets 5-0. It's worth noting that among all those pitchers with 200 wins, Kershaw has the highest winning percentage, .694, highest of all of them. Kershaw joins Don Sutton and Don Drysdale as the only 3 Dodger pitchers to win 200 games in a career. The Brewers won again last night, 6-5 in extra innings against Seattle. Craig Counsell's team 13-5 on the year. Meanwhile, the Cardinals lose again. Cardinals are now 7-11 to start the year. In the NBA, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker combined for 63 points as the Phoenix Suns even their best-of-7 series, opening round series, at a game apiece with the Clippers. 123-109 the final. Game 3 is Thursday in L.A. Darius Garland pours in 32 as the Cavaliers blow out the New York Knicks. That's in Cleveland. 107-90, that series even at a game apiece. They now move to Madison Square Garden, where Paul Fritzner's still on the scoreboard there, I'm sure.
That's true.
Boston hammered Atlanta to go up 2-0 in that series. Tonight, the Lakers square off with the number 2 seed Memphis Grizzlies. LA won game 1 behind big games from LeBron and Anthony Davis. Other games tonight include Miami at Milwaukee. Giannis listed as doubtful in that game. You may remember, he left game 1 with an injured back. The Nuggets look to take a 2-0 lead in their series against Minnesota. Tomorrow night, the defending champion Warriors host Sacramento in game 3 with the Kings up 2-0. Golden State will be without Draymond Green, who was suspended for 1 game after his ejection from the game 2 nights ago. And in the NHL, the Rangers and Lightning were winners in game 1 last night. Out west, Seattle shocks Colorado, and the Jets beat Vegas. Football news.
Yuck.
Tell you what, I know Casey likes to sit around here and badmouth them all the time, but the Steelers continue to quietly put together a solid offseason. This is going to be a good team. Pending a physical, the men of aluminum are expected to make a trade for Rams wide receiver Allen Robinson in the next couple of days. The Steelers are only giving up 2 seventh-round draft picks to get him.
Yikes.
Allen Robinson. Tell you what, men of aluminum, their skill positions look good. Better watch out, Casey.
They'll still stink.
It's nice to see our buddy Sir Boy Wonder is back in the house. We've been a little bit worried about the old boy. We were talking about him before the show today. Good to have him back and all the rest. It's always great to have my dad, the Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman, join us. He is back in OHIO after spending some time hobnobbing with all the big wigs from, the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area through Chapel Hill and Salisbury, and now back on the home front. How goes it there, young man?
Everything is fine, Tom. Thank you for asking. Everything could not be better. The weather's getting better here. I can't think of anything that would make it even better than it is right now.
Well, I can think of something better, and that's a Marymount win tonight in lacrosse. That would make it better.
Yeah, I've got to have a full report. I can't make that one tonight, but I think that's got a chance to be a butt with it.
Well, that's against Summit Country Day. That's the crowd you run with, Paul.
That's
the
it.
Liberal elitist over there at Summit Country Day. That's your
How about it, Paulie?
That's me.
Paulie, is that you?
That's
What?
all you.
He asked,
That's
is that
all
you? That is you.
No,
all you.
Yeah, that's me, all right. That's me.
Okay, well, I'm glad we could confirm that as fact.
Well, it is.
Nice to know.
Believe me, he knows it. It's a fact. First of all, the Hunter Green deal. Were you surprised by it?
Yes, I was very surprised by it. I say I was surprised, looking at this whole situation and the fact that he.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Huh?
We lost you there for a minute. Go ahead and start from the beginning, if you would, please. It's that
I'd say
high octane internet you use.
Yeah, I know that. I said that, I was initially surprised, but not so much when I started to think about it, given the fact that he's, 23 years old. His ceiling is limitless. Not surprised at all. However, I think it begs the question, then, what are you going to do with people like Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft? I mean, the so-called big three. You've cast your lot now with Hunter Green. But at this stage of their careers, I don't know that anybody could say with any certainty that Hunter Green is going to have a better career than Nick Lodolo and or Graham Ashcraft. At the same time, again, going back to what I said initially, after I got over this somewhat surprise, I realized that in the long term, it's probably going to be a pretty good deal for this club.
We had talked about it last week about how the Reds were going to have to do something with the number 4 and 5 spots in their rotation because, you just look at the last 2 starts combined, Overton and then Sessa giving up 9 in the first inning on Sunday. He had to gobble up a couple of more innings after that, but those 2 guys just weren't getting it done, and most people feel like Sessa's better in the bullpen anyway. And so now all of a sudden you got Luke Weaver, and you have the young man making his major league debut today here in just a couple of hours in Levi Stout. What are your thoughts? You can't be surprised they were making those changes, right?
No, I said before the first pitch was ever thrown, when I came back from Arizona, that the 2 weak links were going to be their 4 and 5 spots in the rotation. And it turned out to be exactly that. And I agree with what this team has done. You can look at it a lot of different ways. But at the same time, given the inability of Overton and Sessa to pitch well in any of their starts, whatever you do can't be any worse. So you have to try and see by putting Luke Weaver out there, and certainly Luke Weaver has some experience pitching in the big leagues, and then giving Levi Stout a shot in his first big league start this afternoon against Tampa Bay. You got to do something. You can't leave those guys in that 4 and 5 spot and continually go to your bullpen as early as they had to do with these guys when their turns came up to pitch. So I don't think that that's a problem, and I think that they simply have to find somebody to do a reasonable job. And you're not asking them. After all, there are 4 and 5 starters, so you're not talking about a number 1, 2, or 3. You're talking about the back end of your rotation. You got to find somebody that can do a decent job and give you a reasonable number of innings sometime when they go out there. If you don't, it's really going to be a long year. I mean, people talk about, this club's now 7-10 after getting blown out last night. At the same time, they've gotten off to a better start than they did last year. But then again, you could say, well, you couldn't get off to a worse one. But they have shown some improvement if you're going from year to year. They have to find somebody that can pitch decently in that 4, number 5 spot, and hopefully Luke Weaver and Levi Stout will be the answer. Yeah.
When you think about circling back a second, I had made note in the monologue that Hunter Green is the only player with Joey Votto's contract expiring, the 10-year deal at the end of this year. Hunter Green is the only guy that they know for sure is on the books for next year as far as a guaranteed contract is concerned. Look, you've forgotten more about it than I have. I can never remember any team I have ever covered where that was the case.
Oh, well, don't forget Ken Griffey Jr. He's still on the books.
Okay, all right, Ken Griffey.
Don't forget that. Right. But no, I know what you're saying, and I would concur with you 100%. I can't remember ever that this franchise has gone into a season that they did not financially owe anybody any money as they were positioned to do until the announcement about Green's contract. But still, that's the only one. And if you average it out, what he signed a 6-year contract for, or 9-year, well, how many years was it?
6 years for $53 million.
Okay, so you're talking roughly $9 million a year. Let's face facts now. I mean, in this world of professional athletics, that's pocket change. So I think they're in a great position to do what they did with Hunter Green. And also, it makes you wonder if they were willing to commit to Green right now, and all the speculation beyond 2023 relevant to Joey Votto and the option that the club can pick up. It's a one-way option. It certainly would appear to me to believe that they have no intention of picking up that option beyond 2023. If they're willing to commit that kind of money to Hunter Green, even though it is $9 million on average per year.
You say that, and I wonder, and this has to be true because in business in general, and the Reds are a business, you've got to have your 1-year plan, your 3-year plan, your 5-year plans from an economic standpoint, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody out there knows that. Now, all of a sudden, this Bally's sports thing. We saw this coming from, 8 miles away. I said it on this show months ago. It was going to be the single biggest story in sports period this year. How it's going to affect the only sport it's not going to affect is the NFL, but hockey, NBA, baseball. Okay, now we know some further details have come out about how in the Reds situation, they're in a very different situation than the teams that already filed a lawsuit against Bally's in the Guardians, the Brewers, and the Twins and the Diamondbacks, where they didn't get their money either. And they lumped into a lawsuit with Major League Baseball. The Reds are in a different scenario, apparently, because when they negotiated their deal in 2017, part of that deal, rather than getting a lot more money cash handed to the team, was the Reds were given an ownership stake in Bally's. So technically, they can't be a part of a lawsuit against Bally's because they're part owner of Bally's. What do you think is going to happen? Are you hearing anything about what might happen here?
No, I mean, I was told a month ago, don't worry about 2023. That's no matter what happens, that's taken care of. The Reds will be on TV, on Bally Sports for the rest of the season, no matter what happens. The elephant in the room, obviously, is what happens beyond 2023. And I've heard no speculation whatsoever in terms of what might occur, who might be involved in it, who might be interested in it, if anybody. It's going to be, and I'm sure that there are things going on behind the scenes right now, almost 24/7, trying to figure out how we're going to keep all these teams on television and available to their loyal fans on a year-in, year-out basis, a situation that nobody has ever had to deal with in the history of television and baseball at the big league level. This is, you're walking a path that nobody's ever had to walk before. Major League Baseball, I assume after May the 6th, they're going to pick up all expenses as far as the Reds are concerned for till the end of the season. I don't know where you go after that. As I say, I think it's going to be a very interesting thing, and it's the type of thing that has to be addressed right now. They have to do something about this looking down the road to 2024. They can't wait next week or next month or in July. They've got to deal with this thing because it's going to come upon them very, very quickly. And what direction they go in is truly going to be very, very interesting to watch as this whole thing unfolds.
Yeah,
I don't know how baseball. I don't know how in the world that they could have gotten themselves in the position that they're in right now. It's beyond my comprehension to deal with a company that overpaid to begin with, rights fees in order to manage 16, 17 teams.
Yep.
And the teams not step back and scratch their heads and said, well, wait a minute now. Let's look at this whole thing and how much of an expenditure you people have and whether or not we're not going to have a problem down the road. And maybe somebody did say that. And whatever answer they got coming back to them satisfied them. I don't know. But it's a real mess. There's no question about that. And as you said, it's not particular to baseball. It's the NHL and it's the NBA also.
You know, the thing that I don't understand, and it's above my pay scale, but I know people that I could call and ask about this, and I'm going to certainly do that over the weekend because you need time to try and dissect this, is the thing I have a hard time understanding, and it's got to be, like you said, for what they paid to buy these RSNs. Technically from Disney, Fox was forced to spin this off in an FCC deal. Disney bought it. Then turned around and sold it to Sinclair, the parent company of Bally's, Diamond Sports, whatever you want to call it. But, I mean, this was a money-making machine when Fox had it. Many will remember that when Fox had this thing, that's when News Corp decided to split off into two different companies where they had Fox Television, Fox News, the Big Ten Network, and the RSNs all under one umbrella because they were printing money on this deal. And now all of a sudden, here we are 3 years out of their ownership of this thing. Two companies have since bought it. And now you got one losing their ass where they can't pay anybody. I just don't know how that happens.
Does this mean Fox is smarter than everybody else in this situation?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that, when they started this thing, they owned the whole thing. And so it wasn't like you were buying it for, $7 billion for somebody else. There were startup costs, but not to that extent. I don't know if all of a sudden the rights fees went through the roof, where all of a sudden in Fox's days, although Fox was the one who negotiated this deal with the Reds in 2017, they still, I don't know. Anyway. We'll see how it all plays out. But, when I look at, you and I have talked about Rob Manfred. I give him all the credit in the world for pushing through these rule changes because it has made the sport far more enjoyable to watch. But I have a hard time believing that he's really got this plan in place to keep games on the air for some of these teams.
Oh, I agree with that. He's been vague, other than saying that, we've got a plan in place that hopefully will take care of this problem, and has not extended himself any further than that by way of explanation. This may be one of the greatest tests that he's ever been confronted with in the years in which he's been commissioner of baseball. And if he can pull this thing off, and make everybody happy, and return this whole situation to some semblance of normalcy, I'm going to be a little bit more in favor of him. Not that I am very much to begin with, but certainly I would give him a check mark beside his name for being able to make this thing work when right now it looks like a complete unmitigated mess.
I almost wonder, Dad, if we're not going to see in some of these markets, and let's zero in on here on Cincinnati, I'm not so sure we're not going to see local channels. Now, Sinclair owns Channel 12 here in town, so I don't know how that whole thing would work. Again, I'm not smart enough to figure it out. But, I mean, if you're Channel 19 and you're Channel 5 and you're Channel 9, I mean, could you see where they just go, roughly 50-50-50 number of games, and they have three different, stations televising the games?
Well, you bring up an interesting situation. I mean, it's certainly thought-provoking. The only question, the biggest question I would have in a situation like that, and we can all go back to remembering, at least you and I can, remembering because you were a part of it, when Channel 5 was the sole owner of the Reds on television in this market forever. And I think now today, the question I would have as time has gone by, and now we're thinking about the possibility of going to three of the stations in the market locally and saying, okay, let's divvy up, for the sake of argument, 150 of the 162, and each station carrying 50 games. Nobody will be known as, the TV voice of the Cincinnati Reds. There will be three TV voices. We will use the same personnel. Nothing will change if 50 games end for Channel 5 and the next 50 go to Channel 9. Everything will be visually will be the same. How big now do the networks come into play in terms of their willingness to allow the local stations to preempt network telecast and network time in favor of televising the Cincinnati Reds? Maybe it was not as tough back in the 60s and 70s and than it is right now. And that to me would be the biggest single burden that they would have to overcome in order for them to pull something like that off.
That's a great point because, I remember back when I was doing the games on Channel 5, and it's hard to believe for young people today, but back in those days, outside of really the Mets, the Cubs, and the Braves.
The Braves.
Every local market was only doing about 55, 60 maybe games a year, and that's the reason why you couldn't do more than that is because NBC, in this case Channel 5, they've got their primetime programming. They don't want all of a sudden that getting preempted by some ball game in Cincinnati or anywhere else. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Last thing I want to ask you about, because it's been brought up in the chat, and it was brought up by your good friend and mine yesterday, Tracy Jones, who had to come on the show early yesterday because he had a very important date with you and taping what he said the name of the show is, in his belief,
Jones and Brennaman.
Jones and Brennaman on baseball. I said to him, I corrected him, I said, I've never heard it said that way. I've heard it said Brennaman and Jones on baseball. What's the real deal? What's the answer on that thing?
Hey, look. I mean, let's be honest about this thing now. We all know it's Brennaman and Jones. If he wants to live under the delusion and it makes him feel better to call it Jones and Brennaman, all I'm doing is extending the hand of Christian fellowship to him and allowing him to call it whatever the heck he wants to call it.
Well, that's very kind of you. Very kind.
I mean, you know, we have an affection for Tracy Jones. Yeah. I know you do. I certainly do. Whatever makes him happy, because he's got a little diva in him, and so you have to play to that, and you have to try and temper that. And if you can do that by calling the show Jones and Brennaman on baseball, then I'm good for that. I don't care.
Are you comfortable with him giving marital advice to Casey McAllister, who's about to get married in June? Tracy has offered him a lot of advice, whether it's financial, whether it's intimacy, whether it's whatever it is, even raising funds for his wedding coming up in June. Are you comfortable, knowing Trey, you know him better than the rest of us, are you comfortable with him giving that kind of advice to a young, impressionable young man?
Casey, this is a word to the wise. I would be very, very careful. I would not be impetuous in pulling the trigger on any facet of your impending marriage and something that you hold dearly and hope that it lasts for a lifetime, especially coming from him. That would not be a good idea on your part. And I think down the road, if you cast your lot with everything that he recommended that you do, you just might as well bend over and kiss your bud goodbye. Because it's over.
I think that is the most sound advice I've had throughout the whole process, Marty.
Well, I feel better now for Thom having asked that question and me giving an opportunity, being given an opportunity to offer you some advice, albeit in a very, very general sort of way.
All right. Well, Dad, we thank you. Casey, thanks you. Paul, anything you guys have before we let him go? He's a busy guy. He's got stuff going on.
I do have one thing. I've been meaning to do this. I just keep forgetting it. It's on my table. I have an invitation for you, Marty, to the wedding. I just keep forgetting to get an address or something so I can send it to you. So I'll hook
When is it, Casey?
Huh?
When is it?
June 3rd of this year.
Right around the corner.
I know it is. I got to check my schedule and see if I'm in town or I'm in Europe.
See,
I would be.
That's
I
what
would
I
be
mean.
honored.
Big league operator. I mean, he's not saying to us, I got to see if I'm going down to, wherever. Lake Lorelei or something out in Brown County. No. Europe.
So I'll leave that for you guys. I'll leave
the ham and eggers.
Well, I didn't say that.
Did Tracy call you a ham and egger?
No, I don't think so. Why?
Oh, he said he did. See?
He did. Well, see, he also is susceptible to telling falsehoods. So that's another reason why I'd be careful.
All right. Well, Dad, we'll let you go. We thank you as always for the time. A big hit in our chat. Everybody, wanting to just tell you hello, and they miss you doing the games and all that kind of thing. So thanks for the time today.
All right, buddy. Good talking with you all.
All right.
See you next week.
We'll talk to you
I
later.
love you too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Now, there you have it, Casey. Now, that's real advice. And you got to remember now, I mean, Tracy Jones has only been married twice.
Only twice.
The Hall of Famer plus one.
I mean,
Only twice.
Only twice.
Hall of Famers 3.
but I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm getting great advice from Hall of Famers, 5-team MLB players. I mean,
You're right.
it's a delicate balance. I gotta find a happy medium, right?
Well, I mean, look, if I were you, and this is just my opinion, okay, there's something to be said. And I will say this, and I am never a big proponent. My mom and dad were divorced. They split up after we had moved from Virginia to Cincinnati. It's a very difficult thing for kids. Okay? There's no doubt about it. It's tough for the parents. It's interesting, though, do you learn more from the person who's been married, say, 25 years, right?
Right.
And everybody out there agrees. I mean, marriage is not easy, okay? It can be the greatest thing in the world, and, man, there are nights where you're just like, you got to be kidding. And that's the truth. That is the truth. Are you better off picking the brain, or is it a combination? Are you better off picking the brain and getting marital advice or tips from someone who's been married to the same person for 25 years? Or a person who, went down that road, learned some lessons. All right, let's try it again. Went down that road. And in Tracy's case, still going strong. Marty's case, second one, thought, okay, learned some lessons here over 20-plus years, which he was. And now all of a sudden, like that Lou guy commercials, he's on number 3. So, I mean, where do you think? I'm curious to hear you two guys. I think this is a good question, albeit not on sports. But where do you think you get the most solid advice, or is it a combination? I'll start with you, Casey.
I personally think it's a combination because, well, just from my experience on both sides of the family, on Alex's side and my side, my mom and dad have been together for 25 plus years. My in-laws, I think, are going on 20 or are at 20 plus years. So I have very good role models there and on that perspective, and they both have very different stories. And then, I think it's important to have the other side told to you as well, because if you're not exposed to that side at all, you just don't know going into it. So I think it's important to have both. What do you think?
Yeah, I think part of it is a judgment of character, right? Because if you see somebody who's been married 3 times and you don't necessarily trust them, or you don't like that person, or you think to yourself, oh, well, there's a reason that they've been married 3 times, then maybe you don't take as much advice from them. But at the same time, on the other side of that coin, if you see legitimate reasons for, oh, this didn't work out or this didn't work out and things happen, I know somebody very well who's been married 3 times, and I trust that person a lot, and they've talked with me about just stuff. I mean, not that I'm engaged or getting married anytime soon, but
no, we'll see about that. But go ahead.
But I mean, we have kind of like had those conversations, and I also have a lot of family, obviously, that has been married for a long time, and I just think to myself, I think there are good and bad things to be taken from both sides, and marriage it's a huge decision, Casey. It's a big thing you got to think about. It's a big thing that you got to plan for. And it's not all sunshine and roses. And the more you can learn, the more you can talk to people, the more you can figure things out from every angle, the better off you'll be, and the more prepared you'll be.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. I do think the best advice I ever got, and this is going to be very controversial for just a minute.
Here we go.
Let's get into the weeds.
Controversial Casey. I love it.
Go.
The best advice I got was moving in with Alex, like living with the person.
Because you get some differing opinions on that.
Yeah, you do. You get a lot of differing opinions. And it's, to me, I think in the future I will even advise my children, if the case presents itself.
Oh, it's coming sooner rather than later, but go ahead.
To really consider living with the person first, because you don't know what they're like without the parents being around, or, you know, when it's just the two of you all the time responsible for things, you get a better understanding of who that person is.
Tom, there was no funnier moment in the time that Casey and I have worked together here in this last 8 or 9 months. No funnier moment. We've had some funny moments than the week after you guys moved in, and Casey gets back. It's probably the next Monday. I hope I'm not overstepping a bound here.
Go ahead.
It's probably the next Monday. Casey walks in, and I go, Casey, you know, you've been stressing for a month about this house. I mean, we heard it on the show.
Right.
Poor Casey over here was a poor ball of stress for probably 4 straight weeks about this house. He comes into me. I said, Casey, how was the first week in the house? He goes, you know, it's pretty quiet. I said, well, what's that mean? He goes, well, you know, you were coming from living with your family, and he said it's just a change. It's pretty quiet. Okay, I said, well, that's good. You'll learn to live with that.
That's exactly right.
You go from living in a crowded home and living in the west side of Cincinnati to the nice suburbs of Mason.
Well, that's it. There's no doubt. That is a shock to the system. And that's the way it's going to be around our house. I'm not looking forward to it. I'll be the first to admit it. You know, and a lot of you out there know who are on the chat. I mean, you know, you're blessed to have kids. You know, you do all the things that you do with your kids, no matter what it is, academically, athletically, relationships, you know, emotions and ups and downs and puberty and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, you know, like we're going to be staring down the barrel, Polly and me. Polly and I are going to be looking at empty house. And I know she's going to be looking at me like going, who are you again? Who? Oh. All right, Ham and Eggers, take it for a minute. We are only on the air for an hour today. We had Dan McLaughlin. I mean, it's a crazy story. We're supposed to have him on today. And one of his kids is, I guess, a fantastic golfer. Plays in a bunch of national stuff, high school kid. He has something in his basement where he can hit the ball against a wall, whatever it was. Well, his son's down there with a buddy last night. And his son is hitting driver into this net. Apparently on the follow-through, his friend was standing too close to him and hits a kid right in the mouth with his driver. Knocks out his front 2 teeth. And so they are, you know, hanging out with his family and this kid. And so he had to bail on us. He'll join us again next week. Ham and Eggers, take it away.
All right.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
I think we're going to talk just very briefly here in a few minutes about the Bengals. They signed a sponsorship deal today. I think we got to talk about, but we'll talk about that when Thom comes back. And the Bengals Report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data center world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here.
Great job.
Did I
Paul.
hit it? I
think
think I hit it. I think I did it today. I did it. You know what else we have to talk about? Right here. We have a whole box of it over here to our right. Pawnee Water. It's a new premium alkaline water. It's made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water that is also the best tasting water in the world. Visit their website at pawneewater.com. That is PAHHNI water.com. PAHHNI water.com. You can see it right there. I don't know if there's a glare. PAHHNI water.com.
And just to let you all know, I've tested it. It's legit.
Yeah, Casey did a pH test on the water. Your mom did.
Yeah, well, we it's over 8. It might be 9. It's pretty damn good. It's good water for you. I even tested. So because I tested Pawnee water yesterday, I actually tested the Mason public water that went through my Brita filter. So it's even filtered out to that degree. And I was very shocked.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean it's still neutral, but it's like almost grazing on the acidic side.
Okay. So have you ever heard? I would love to hear Tom's thoughts on this. I'm gonna wait until Tom sits down, because this is something. I'm glad you bring this up. So Tom, we're talking about the acidity of water, and Casey was talking about running the water. We're talking about Pawnee first, and then
Casey actually. I mean, he's getting down to business. Your mom, right?
Yeah. She wanted to test it, and it came out very good. A very good test.
So he runs the Mason water through a Brita filter, tests that for acidity, I guess, right?
And
it was neutral, but it was on the fringe of being acidic. So I was kind of surprised when I did the test, because that was through a Brita filter. Couldn't imagine what the actual public water without the filter.
Yeah. So here's my question. Tom, have you ever heard of the Navage?
yes, I have.
Do you use it?
My wife uses it regularly. I do not.
Have you ever tried to use it?
I have not.
Okay, so
I hear it's fantastic.
So I bought one. Casey, do you know what the Navage is?
Is it like a filter?
It's a thing for your nose. It's a sinus thing. It's one of those things where you shoot water up and then it comes out the other side and it clears out your sinuses.
Yeah.
Supposed to be very good for your overall health.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I get terrible sinus infections. I mean, you can hear, like, my voice constantly sounds nasally. I'm just constantly blowing my nose. And when I get a cold, it lasts like 2 weeks. I get sick all the time from colds. My immune system's not great anyway. I digress. I buy one of these Navages.
Right.
I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago because I said I try to use it before I go on a broadcast because it makes my voice sound clear. I'm not blowing my nose as much, but the relief doesn't last that long. Feels like it only lasts like an hour or so. And so I was talking to somebody and they said, don't use tap water, use distilled water. So go to Kroger or something.
UDF.
Go to UDF. Buy yourself a jug of distilled water. Pawnee water is too good for that. You don't want to use Pawnee. You want to
you don't want to do that.
You want to drink Pawnee water. You're not
Right.
throwing Pawnee water in your sinuses.
Right.
Go get yourself some distilled water and then put the little saline cap in there and then use it. And it's supposed to give you longer lasting
Really?
relief. I have not tried that yet. I just learned about this the other day.
I'll have to tell my
I have not
bride
tried
about
that
that
yet. But I would love to know, because I don't use it every day. The person I was talking to uses it every day. Would love to know from somebody that uses it every day, somebody else.
Yeah. If they found that to be the case.
Because he said he uses it every day, and then the other guy that I was sitting there with said that he used it every day, and it was the same way. They said it
My
changed their
wife was
experience.
trying to tell our son, who just recently had a sinus thing, to try this thing, right? And, I mean, she said the sensation of it is really, really weird.
Oh, man. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
So the first few times I did it, actually, you kind of have to, like, go in the shower. Because if you don't do it right, you're going to probably feel like you're choked. You can't drown or anything because the way that
It's not waterboarding.
Yeah, it's not waterboarding, but it feels like you're getting water up your nose, and the way that you have, well, I mean, obviously, you're literally getting water up your nose, but if you do it wrong, it feels like it's getting stuck up there. But if you do it right, it feels like nothing's happening. It just goes up one side, out the other, and it drains you all out. It's great.
It's good stuff.
Especially now in the spring if you have allergy issues. So go to UDF, get yourself some distilled water, and we'll report back.
Is that something you do every day, or just?
You don't have to. It's not a prescribed thing. It's not a medical thing. You can do it once a week. You can do it when you get sick and your nose is clogged up and it flushes you out, or you can do it every day. And
I consider myself very nasally, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
might try it.
Yeah, you ought to give it a go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it here. Matter of fact, I'll try it tonight, and we'll get full report tomorrow.
all right, there we go.
I'll give it a go. I was supposed to wear that tired Viking hat of that whole tired act.
Sir, boy, I
But
got it.
It fits you.
Looks good on you. And we had a bet yesterday that if the Reds swept the Tampa Bay Rays, I would wear that on the program tomorrow. But we know that now is in the past. Rubber game coming up here in about hour and a half, 2 hours. Couple of things I want to hit on since we're only on for a short time. There is a really interesting piece done today on ESPN.com. And it's written by a fella named, let me see if I can find this real quick, named Brian Barnwell. He's a writer there, covers the NFL, so on and so forth. And he does a thing today that for every team in the NFL, a proposed trade that team could make before the draft. And I find this one to really be an interesting proposal here, okay? That the Bengals trade Jonah Williams, right?
Right.
Who they're asking to move from left tackle to right tackle after acquiring Orlando Brown Jr. last month. Okay, he's already requested a trade. Now, Tristan Wirfs is a really good right tackle. Missed a lot of time this season when they had moved him over to left, but they prefer to have him on the right side down in Tampa. So you give Williams a chance to kind of restart his career, right, to go to Tampa. So the proposal would be is you basically flip-flop picks, okay, in the first and third rounds this year with Tampa Bay. Williams goes off to Tampa Bay. The Bengals would move up from 28 to 19 in the draft, where the chances are far more likely at 19 than 28, obviously, that if you wanted to use that pick to go get one of these big-time tackles, one of those guys is going to be available. Casey, your thoughts, if any?
Yeah, I mean, not knowing all the details on what you said the third round?
It would be a first round, so it would be, it would be the Bengals would get in the first round the 19th pick.
Okay.
In the third round, the 82nd pick. So you're basically moving up 10 spots in the first round and the third round, and Tampa is dropping down 10 spots in the first and the third. They would get the 28th pick in the first round. They would get the 92nd pick in the third round, and they get Jonah Williams.
Yeah, so just to maybe put it in perspective, at 19, you're looking at guys like potentially like Paris Johnson Jr. falling, or Broderick Jones or Darnell Wright, and I'd be happy with all three of those guys at tackle at the right side. I know two of those guys I think are left tackles, but I mean, yeah, I'd be happy with that. And then if you're looking at the third round, I mean, you could still potentially get your tight end like Tucker Kraft. You're probably not going to get him past the fourth. You know, there's a lot of I think a lot of positives to that. You could still get your
running back.
Yeah, your running back.
A good corner.
A good corner. I like that trade a lot. I really do. I think it has a lot of benefits for both sides. The one thing that that does, though, is make it so they have a lot of choices. And not that that's a bad thing, but it could potentially be a bad thing where they have all these options available to them instead of just picking whatever the BPA is. They go with the need over the best player because, you know, they have the option.
Well, it's a good problem to have.
That's a good problem.
Yes, it is.
Right. But I like the trade a lot.
I do too. I think it's very, very smart. Basically this value, according to the writer Barnwell, is that the value placed on Williams in this trade, when you factor in everything, money, flip-flopping spots in the first and third rounds, is basically putting Jonah Williams at a third-round draft choice right around the 65th pick in the draft. And right now where his career is, you know, he did not play well last season, really didn't play all that well the year before. He got hurt last year. He's coming off knee surgery. He's making pretty good money. He doesn't want to be a right tackle. You know, the value of him right now, where his career sort of sits, and I still think the guy's going to have a good career. I really do. Is basically at a 65th pick, and that seems to be a fair value. So, you know, I don't know if that's something the Bengals are exploring at all. You made the comment that when they asked Zach Taylor with a few of the guys in town to go through some stuff the last day or two, that he basically said, I'm not sharing any of my conversations that I've had with Jonah Williams publicly. I'm keeping those private, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's, to me, I don't know. It didn't sound like, to me, that Jonah was going to be there. That's the sort of vibe I'm getting from it. You can't really take much away from that press conference, but just the way that he answered it and body language, which you can't really read too much into it. It just seems like Jonah will probably not be here next year, just from that alone. And the fact that they had voluntary workouts start, I think it was Tuesday. Mm-hmm. They had some guys that weren't there, some guys that were there that were surprising, like some of the injured guys, like Wouzier was there.
Yep, and apparently very good reports on him. Running, jumping, doing all the stuff, says he's going to be full go, ready to go come opening night.
Yeah, which is great.
All right, let me ask you this, though. You shared with me, and I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make it a point, if we can, depending on, the show, once we get into the fall and all that kind of thing. I don't know if we can make it happen, but I'm going to try to see if occasionally we can't make it happen, is to go to some of these Zach Taylor press conferences that he has regularly.
Yeah.
Because did you share with me the other day that, I don't know if you watched the whole thing or not. Did you?
I did.
There was not a single question to Zach Taylor about Joe Mixon.
Not one.
I mean, you have got to be kidding me.
I mean, I thought they would have at least asked for some comments on Joe Mixon. He would probably say something to the regards of, dismissive and let's move on. The situation's going to play out or whatever. They don't know. Maybe they don't know a whole lot.
And maybe they told the press ahead of time, we don't know. I mean, right. I'm going to, give the benefit of the doubt here because there are a lot of smart people that cover this team. Some of them we have on this show.
Yeah.
Right? And they're very bright, and they do their jobs exceptionally well. So I'm not going to sit here and, they might have been told beforehand, hey, look, don't even bring it up because we ain't getting into it.
Right.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But if that did not happen, that is almost inconceivable that somebody sitting in that room didn't have it cross their mind to ask about Joe Mixon, who, by the way, was there working out. He's still under contract with the team, so he showed up, right? So, I mean, if the guy's there, or even if he's not there, again, I just can't understand it. I mean, right now, the three biggest stories with the franchise, and I'm taking the long-term contract for Burrow out of the mix because we know it's coming. It's just how it's structured, okay? But the three biggest questions are obviously, in no particular order, Williams, Mixon, draft.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. And I thought, not that we're going to get super deep into this discussion, I just think the media sometimes struggles with asking the right type of questions to get certain answers out of the coaches. Like, they didn't have to ask, did you talk to Jonah Williams, to get an answer to whether or not he's considered on the depth chart or not. They could have said, who's that competition at right tackle? And then they go list out the names, and then Jonah Williams not there in that list, or he is. And then you have a better idea, and then you can answer a follow-up question. Did you talk to Jonah Williams or not? But they didn't ask, like, those follow-up questions to lead up to the bigger questions. They didn't ask them, is there any plans to replace Samaje? Is there any plans to add a running back in the draft? Like, they didn't ask, like, what
was asked, if you don't mind? I mean, I'll go back and watch it if I have to, but I'm just kind of curious before we wrap it up. What was asked in that press conference besides the Jonah Williams thing?
I mean, a lot of the questions were, how was the break? What's the message going into next season? With the players that are gone from free agency, do you feel like you replaced the depth there good enough? So it was more of a broad question.
Okay.
I mean, they lumped in Samaje, but it was more about the secondary and the tight end spot. They asked questions about Irv Smith, if he's considered the starter or not. Zach actually, interestingly, said that he believes that he can start and that they fully intend for him right now at this moment to replace Hayden Hurst snaps. So I don't know if that maybe
well, I don't think that's breaking news.
Right, but I do think that maybe it has a little bit of effect on the draft.
I just wonder if them re-signing Sample, which we didn't talk about yesterday, changes the way they look at the whole tight end thing. or whether the Bengals would be happy. And you know what? I wouldn't blame him for that position. If they just want to go a year by year, moving forward, running different guys in and out of here all the time, because I think those guys are replaceable at tight end. They brought in Hurst. Nobody talked about Hayden Hurst, and he had a heck of a year. Smith can come in here. Hopefully he stays healthy. That's been his issue. But if he stays healthy, he's a talented cat. And, you know, I mean, I could see him doing that year-by-year thing instead of picking somebody in the draft. Maybe they feel otherwise. They've forgotten more about it than I have.
The only other thing they really talked about was the guys that were injured, like Awuzie and Leal, and where they're at and how they feel about that. Those guys going.
What do you say about Collins?
Collins is not. He's not at the voluntary workouts. He's still getting rehab done. Zach said that all of them were in the right direction.
Okay.
Ahead of schedule is what he said.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good news because Lyle Collins, I'm not going to throw him out of this mix quite yet. Not yet. Not yet. Big fella has had a good career.
Yeah.
And if he can come back, maybe not for the start of the season, but if he can come back, could be big. All right. Before we get out of here, are you guys doing box lunch today?
Actually, Reed just texted about that. I'm not 100% sure if he is or not, but I have two things before we leave.
Yes.
One is the Bengals signed a big deal today. We are not sponsored by a chili company, so we are fine to talk about this. Skyline Chili, the new official sponsor of the Cincinnati Bengals. It is about time. It is a great day for the city of Cincinnati.
Boys, this is all about the old adage, as we know, right? Money talks and the rest of it walks. Skyline is the king. I'm a Gold Star fan. I'm a Skyline fan. I'm a Cincinnati Chili fan. But Skyline is king. And now they're the king of the jungle.
That's sad. It's a dark day.
What?
It's a dark day.
Why is it a dark day?
I love Gold Star, and when I think of Gold Star, I do think of the Bengals. They've been the official partner with them for 20-plus years.
Yeah, that's the part that, you know, that's the part I think you're right to some extent because, you know, look, for years and years, I mean, the Bengals were a mess, right? And Gold Star stayed with them, even when they were a mess, year after year after year, either crummy teams or good teams that couldn't win a playoff game. Right. And now all of a sudden the Bengals are good, and they're jumping ship. And again, you know what it gets down to, Casey? Yeah. Cash.
It's sad. I really think this hurts Gold Star too. And just their business in general. I mean, I know they probably couldn't afford whatever price tag that they were, trying to look for from from Gold Star. But I think this hurts more than it does them any good. This was their big sponsor, their big partnership.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's dark days for Gold Star guys.
Gold Star has great burgers.
You know, you've told me that. I got to try one.
Gold Star does have very good. There was a Gold Star. It was underneath where I lived when I was at Xavier, and I can't stand Gold Star's chili, but I liked their burgers, and I would go down there every once in a while for dinner and get a burger.
How did you ever get a date? You had to smell like chili all the time.
Oh my God! I had Skyline. I had Coney's on Sunday, and Lizzie came over. Literally, the first thing she said was, "You had Skyline today, didn't you?" It's bad because I get extra onions. It's bad. No mustard, extra onions.
Okay. All right. Sorry to throw everybody for a loop here today. We got thrown for a loop, as I mentioned, with Dan McLaughlin. So tomorrow we're back locked and loaded. We got a lot of great football guests coming up over the next couple of days. I'm going to tell you, if there is one dude you got to check out, and I hope he brings his A game tomorrow, it is Howard Eskin from Philadelphia.
Ooh.
Because for those that don't know this guy, you've seen 1,000 clips of it. Now, you talk about showing up at press conferences and not afraid to ask the question. This is Howard Eskin in Philadelphia. He was the equivalent of, say, Paul Daugherty here in town with times 10 more explosive, right? I mean, there are clips from him and Charlie Manuel going at it in the manager's office after some random game. He's on television in Philadelphia now. I used to go on his pregame show before all the Eagles games whenever I'd get an Eagles game. He is going to be on tomorrow and to talk about the Eagles. They just signed Hurts to the big deal, and looking forward to that. And I'm trying to remember, we're also joined by someone else talk football tomorrow, and I'm drawing a blank. Men of Steel, we're going to cover them on Friday.
I know.
Men of Aluminum.
We do have a cherry on top here, Tom.
All right, and we are going to have box lunch. We having it at 11 coming up?
Right now.
All right, well, hang on. Let's do this first. Go ahead.
You see this every once in a while. Nick Ahmed last night. Watch this. Just wait. See it there initially. You see a replay of this. You see this every once in a while, maybe 1 or 2 times a year. Hits the dirt. Digs it out of the dirt.
Wow. That's impressive.
Bounce.
How about that?
How about that?
Nick Ahmed.
Yeah.
Tell you, Diamondbacks playing good baseball. They got that big stud that all of a sudden is just blowing it up that they brought up from the minor leagues. They're playing very good baseball, leaders in the National League West. All right, Reed Mouse, what's happening, big boy?
Not much. You know who else is playing good baseball, Tom?
Let me think. Tampa Bay's off to a good start. Milwaukee's playing great.
Yeah.
The Mets have picked it up. Atlanta, I think, is 14-4. So those are some of the teams that kind of come to mind. It had to be one of those, right?
No, it's the Chicago Cubs. They're starters, best ERA in the National League, and they're scoring the most runs in the National League. The Cubs are for real, Tom. Tom, you mentioned Charlie Manuel earlier. You ever meet Charlie Manuel?
Oh, yeah.
Who's more fiery, him or Bobby Cox? Because they're both fiery.
Well, they're both similar kind of guys. You know, Bobby Cox is a California guy, but basically, for all intents and purposes, he's become a Southern guy. Charlie Manuel is born and raised a Southern guy who moved up and managed in Philadelphia and Cleveland. Charlie Manuel is a freaking awesome guy. I mean, just, you know, what you see is what you get. They get fired up now, and Bobby used to lead the league every year in ejections.
I think he has the record.
Yeah, but as far as just to sit down with, and you see that in a lot of guys where, you know, where you'll sit and talk to them, they're very laid back and all shucks, and, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get between those proverbial white lines, and I mean, you know, look out. But if Cox, to answer your question, if he's the all-time leader in ejections, then he's got to be the guy.
Who is the most fiery manager you ever met or you ever called or around? Because those two would be at the top of the list.
Well, Piniella was certainly right there without a doubt. But you saw that in his personality as well when he wasn't on the field. So, yeah, I think that as far as intensity, constant, never ending. And when I say never ending, I mean never ending. Would sleep nights at the ballpark in his office. Mm-hmm. The constant foot on the gas guy is Buck Showalter.
Really?
Never seen anybody like the guy.
What do you think of that, of the people that sleep in their office?
Well, I mean, you know, it was weird. I was out there in Arizona. They had a thing in his office when they built the ballpark. And he had asked for this in his office because he was hired 2 years ahead of time. He was hired right before I was.
Yeah.
And they swooped him up at midnight. That series when the Yankees, he was managing when they lost to Seattle, when Ken Griffey Jr. comes running around the bases and slides to win it for Seattle.
Yeah.
That was Buck Showalter's last game as manager of the Yankees. They had not given him a contract. And at midnight, when his contract expired at midnight, Jerry Colangelo, the owner of the Suns, signed Showalter at 12:01 to be his manager, beating the Yankees to try and re-sign him. So they bring him in. When you walk in the manager's office, and I think it's probably still there at Chase Field, there's a Murphy bed there. So when you walk in, it just looks like this wall. And all of a sudden, you push a button. There's your double bed. You're dialed in.
What about – I didn't know that I never knew how Buck Showalter left the Yankees.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he got signed by the Diamondbacks.
1201A.
And that gave the Yankees a chance to go sign Joe Torre, who was not a good, hadn't had a whole lot of success, right?
Terrible.
Right. He was a terrible manager. And then, of course, the rest is history.
I can't remember. I think the headline in one of the New York papers, if I remember this right, I'm pretty sure this is right. One of the, the splash headlines they have, the Post, the Daily News, whatever it is, not Paul's, paper of preference in New York. The old gray lady, tired gray lady, whatever she's called. But they have the you like that, didn't you, Paul?
Oh,
they have the headline was "Say It Ain't Joe." Right.
Right.
I mean, did not win in Atlanta. Did not win. Was he in St. Louis or the Angels? Can't remember. He had managed 2 different teams. And it had not gone well. Atlanta, one of them for sure. And then look what happened. That was 95, the playoff series. 96, they won the World Series. Right?
90s, they won in 96.
98,
99,
99, 2000.
Yep, they won 4 or 5. The Marlins spoiled in 97, but they beat the Indians in 97.
Yeah.
But they could have had a 5-peat.
Yep. But the Diamondbacks ran them over in 0-1. All right. What's on box lunch here today, big boy? You're getting a little bit earlier start than normal. My apologies for that. Boy, I like the lineup here.
Yeah, there's a lot of news here, sports news here in Cincinnati. So we got a jam-packed show. I mean, the Hunter Green signing's big news, and we'll start talking about the other extensions. There seemed to be some more clarity on the whole Joe Mixon situation. One of the national NFL reporters, and then Paul Dehner Jr. also reported about what was going to happen with Joe Mixon. And then obviously there's some news inside the AFC North with Allen Robinson going to the Steelers. So jam-packed show. Going to have a lot to talk about.
Fired up. All right. Yeah. Well, then let it begin right now. Casey, Paul, thank you, gentlemen.
Sure.
You got to get rid of that Viking thing.
Why?
Because they got beat.
Well, maybe we'll keep it for when they sweep another team, and then we wear it.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank all of you. And again, my apologies today. I was thrown for a loop, and no excuses. It is what it is. Back full 2 hours tomorrow and Friday. Looking forward to it. Draft is coming up a week from tomorrow, so we have lots of football to talk about. Obviously, anything and everything that is Reds. And always on Friday, we touch on Casey's FC Cincinnati squad.
Oof. That talk's going to get tired soon.
Boy, have you thrown in the towel. All right, time for box lunch. It begins right now. We'll see you tomorrow. Good Lord willing. Have a great day on this beautiful sunny day in the Natty.
I must admit, I didn't think much of this show the first time I laid eyes on it. Seemed like a bunch of stiffs wasting nice microphones.
The worst trade of all time happened back in 1803. Go ahead. Napoleon Bonaparte traded the Louisiana Purchase for $3 million. Napoleon, what happened? Half the country for $3 million. You can't even get Tucker Barnhart for $3 million.
Then I came to realize these guys are funny.
And Justin Fields have identical stats the last 5 weeks about throwing the football. This guy, okay,
and
folks,
are
is a
some
fidget
of the best
spinner.
gamblers I've come to know.
If you're betting on USC and or TCU, let it be known you are a square.
TCU is going to hammer this team tomorrow night.
I hate to hear that.
Tomorrow
when we come back
afternoon.
in here on Monday, you're going to be happy as a lark because USC lost, but you're going to be wrong about TCU.
Get ready for the most useless hour of your day. It's time for Boxed Lunch, presented by Betfred Sportsbook. Now, Casey, run that track.
We've heard this one before.
Yeah, you said that y'all liked it, so I'm going to use that one. At least a couple more times.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, you
Don't-
use the same one for a week and then move on, right?
You got bullied by the majority. I get excited to sit here and hear what new royalty-free music Casey has to show us. And I guess we just have a theme song now to
just
head into
for the week.
Just for the week. 3 shows. We got to do 3 shows with that same song. I got ADD. I can't be doing that. I can't have the same show coming in every single intro. It's Box Lunch, presented by Betfred Sportsbook, and the irony is not lost on us that the show is called Box Lunch, and we concluded every single episode by determining where we're going to go out to eat. So that is a very ironic thing. Reed Mouse joined along here with Paul Fritzner, Casey McAllister. Guys, short show today on Off the Bench. A little short show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we our big interview, he had an emergency. We did talk about all the major news that happened around here in Cincinnati, but we didn't have much prepared after that. So
yeah, well, let's dive into it a little more. So, listen, after my most recent shows, our boss Trace Fowler sat me down. This is a true story. Sat me down and told me that if I'm going to keep hosting this show, I can't keep dogging the Reds. I can't keep just laying it on the Reds. As badly and as easily as I could keep doing that, and as badly as I want to keep doing that, I just can't, because now I'm contractually obligated to talk good about the Reds. And the Reds made a very good move yesterday. They made an extension to sign their ace, Hunter Green, to a 6-year, $53 million deal. Now, if you've been watching this show, there's been someone, he sits like right here, right in the seat. Blonde hair, you might know him. Cubs fan. He's been telling you that the Reds should do this. They need to do this. Follow the same blueprint as the Atlanta Braves. Sign guys that are young to extensions. Keep them beyond the 6 years of control that you have. You might get a discount on those arbitration years. And then get them for a year or two in the free agency on the cheap. This is how you build. You got guys that you believe in. You take a small gamble. You take a tiny gamble. But you keep these guys long term. I've been saying that the Reds should do this with their pitching staff. And I know the Atlanta Braves, Nick Kirby brought this up, they did it with their position players. Except for Spencer Strider, who they just extended. They did it first with their 5, 6, Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, all these guys, Austin Riley. They signed them up first. And then now they're getting Spencer Strider and these names. But Hunter Green is signed to a 6-year, $53 million deal, which means that the Reds, beyond the control that they have already gotten, will get him for 2 more years of free agency. Now, the reason that this truly, I don't believe, can fail, I don't even think it's a gamble. It's not a gamble. This isn't a shot in the dark. You're paying Hunter Green a little more than $8 million a year on average for the next 6 years. The Reds paid Mike Minor $9 million last year. That's just off the top of my head. Don't hold me to that. And this isn't a publicity stunt to keep around a fan favorite for the long term. It's a transaction. This is all this is. It's a transaction to say, listen, we, the Cincinnati Reds, will pay you, Hunter Green, a little bit more on your 3 rookie years. We'll pay you early now. Give you $8 million now if you give us a deal on the back end. And what happens if Hunter Green becomes like an ace, like contending for a Cy Young award, to where his arbitration deal, money that he should be getting, is suddenly in the 20 millions? We've seen this happen. Even 15 million. You're getting him at a much cheaper rate. As long as Hunter Green isn't hurt, this deal cannot fail. It truly cannot fail. If he plays for the majority of the next 6 seasons, this deal is dynamite. It's not even a gamble. There's no gambling to it whatsoever. You've seen the talent. If Hunter Green was a free agent now, with his talent, he'd be getting well more than that. And it's just the leverage that you have saying, hey, we'll pay you more up front. if you give us a deal on the back end. That's all it is. Guys, as Casey, a new baseball fan, but you're you know NFL contracts, and I know baseball is a lot different. It's guaranteed money. And Paul, someone who is a fan of the game, thoughts on the Hunter Green extension?
I really like it. I think that this is a good step in the right direction for the Reds, that they are being proactive in getting some of their young guys. And like Thom said on his show, where now you have somebody guaranteed. You didn't have anybody you're guaranteed past this year necessarily. Now you have somebody that you're committing to, you're showing commitment. I think that's the biggest thing here is Reds fans have so much PTSD right now from what happened at the trade deadline last year, from what had happened from the previous rebuild, where you get to a certain point where you touch success, and I'm not saying that this year is a success, but as of right now, you're at least seeing more glimpses of success to where you can tell that Nick Krall has things pointed in the right direction. Nick Lodolo has been maybe the brightest spot. If you want to go from the big three, you'd probably say that Hunter Green is third right now of the Graham Ashcraft, Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, from at least the very, very limited sample size that we have seen this year. He's probably third in that, but there's a clear line of separation between him and then the next two where they're just fumbling around trying to figure out who starters 4 and 5 are. So for them to go out and sign this deal and make sure that he gets done, you're not overspending, you're not breaking the bank, you're not doing anything that's going to set you back for the future. You're committing to one of your top prospects and showing both the team, the organization, and also the fans the fact that you are willing to go out there and do something like this and get it done. And I think it's a really good job by Nick Krall and the Reds to do this. Casey.
Yeah, I'm very similar thoughts. I'm all about the team making smart decisions with guys to keep them long-term to save money in the back end. That, I'll never be upset with that. Even if Hunter Green manages to get hurt early on, it won't be a big deal if he stays healthy in the back end, right? So it's, to me, and the money too is, like you said, it's perfect for his play right now. Like he's not really playing at an ace type level, but he is playing somewhat at a starting quality pitching.
Oh yeah.
That $8 million is perfect, I think. I think that's a sweet spot. So I like what they've done.
Like I said, it can't fail. It truly, the only way it fails is if Hunter Green just simply cannot stay healthy. If he is on the field, so 6 years, you times that by 30, you could do it 5 times 30 and say he misses 30 starts. What is that, 150 starts?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
Yeah, 150 starts. As long as he gets around that number, it's a good deal. It's a great deal. And the question is, and I sent you guys a tweet if you guys want to flash this up about other extensions, if you guys want to check the Twitter. What's next, right? You get Hunter Green, and I hate to do that, I told you so, but I told you so. This is the move that the Reds should do. What is next? Charlie Goldsmith, who's been on the show, right? He's been on off the bench. He's a friend of the program. He's at least been on Chatterbox Reds.
He's been on Chatterbox Reds. I don't think he's been on off the bench. But either way, he's around.
Yeah. So he essentially said, Nick Krall was asked about extensions for other young players, and you can go ahead and flash this up whenever you're ready, Case. Oh no! Oh no!
Hit the wrong button.
Ghost chair.
Oh God!
There it is. Let me fix it.
We've had some conversations with some other players. I won't get into the specifics. So that's just all he said. So they are actively going after other young players. You see the tweet from Goldsmith. All right. So, guys, the question is, you look at these other young players. Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, as Paul just mentioned, the big three. Do you lock them up? Tyler Stevenson, Jonathan India. Do you lock them up? Any other players on this? Do you say, listen, we love what you bring to our franchise. We're starting to build the pieces. We're starting to lay the foundation. We're starting to put the concrete in. We want you to be a wall. We want you to be a part of this team going forward. I think it is imminent that the Reds get a deal with Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft. Paul, Casey, do you think they should sign Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft to a similar deal? If they can get similar money, say the exact same amount of money as they're going to be paying Hunter Green, 6-year, $53 million. Do you sign them both for that contract?
I mean, what's worst case scenario for someone like Lodolo or Ashcraft, right? I mean, I think they've shown that
the
they
Steven
can...
Strasburg contract is the worst case scenario.
But that's $300 million.
Yeah.
We're talking $53 million. You're paying them $8 million. Mike Minor went for $10 million last year. Wade Miley went for $9 million last year. Those are two names that just come to my head because they're veteran arms. They're veteran arms that you know are going to get 160 innings, so you get a little bit more reliability there. But as long as they compete to where if they are at the end of these extensions, and then it's time for their free agency, if they are still throwing $150 million, even if they have a 4.25, 4.5 ERA to where they're not great pitchers, they're going to get like $10 million. And the market's only going up. So if you're asking me, and I know I just shot this question to you two, if you're asking me if I could sign Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft to the same amount of money that you just signed Hunter Green, it's a no-brainer. Yes, absolutely. To where you get your big three for a total of around $25 million a year, your three top-of-the-line arms for $25 million a year for the next 6 years while you try to put veteran pieces around them and try to compete? It's a no-brainer. And this, any one of the three, you're not going to hit on all three. If the Reds hit on every single one of these arms, then man, that is just the luck of the Irish. But it simply makes too much sense. If you hit on two of the three, it's a great deal. Maybe one of them just is terrible. Flash in the pan. At the end of this year, you rarely ever see him again. Maybe. But it's still just such a great deal. Guys, am I talking to a wall here, or no. Are these points coming true that they need to lock up Nick Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft as well?
No, I 100% agree with you. I mean, $25 million for three starting quality pitchers in a 6-year window, or however long that window is a great deal, especially because here's best case scenario: all three of them play out and are good quality starting pitchers. Some of them even possibly at a all-star level. Here's a more realistic approach. They're all just good quality starters, and then you can still afford to go get a guy. And then, even if only one of them work out, I still think that money was well worth spent on that gamble. I think your value there, if we're talking about a value, is greater to go ahead and do this now than to risk losing your guys or to risk paying them more. I don't know. I agree with you, Reed. I think that they should go after Lodolo and Ashcraft.
Yeah, Sir Boy Wonder just brought up some other, flamed out young pitchers. Jair Jurgens was a famous one for the Atlanta Braves. Jair Jurgens hasn't played in a decade. And at the end of his career, his 6-year career, he was making $6 million a year. They just signed Hunter Green for 8.3. That's the average. I don't know exactly how it's broken out. But 53 divided by 6 is 8.333. Michael Wacha, who you also mentioned, guess what he's making on the open market? $16 million. That's on the open market. And this is why they've got to do it. You get them while they're young. You get them on the cheap. It might not work out, but it's such a small gamble. It is such a small gamble. Now, I saw Brian B. put this in the chat. He said, hopefully all three are signed. I agree 100%. If you can extend anybody on this team, you extend the 3 pitchers. And I know that's kind of against conventional wisdom because pitchers are a little bit more unreliable. But Jonathan India, I'm not sold on. I know he's looking great this year, but he had that sophomore slump. His slugging percentage his rookie year was higher than every year. If you look on his baseball reference page, including his college stats, his slugging was through the roof. You hadn't seen it before other than like his sophomore year in college. Minors never saw it. Most of his college years, you never saw it. But he showed it again. And I hope that continues on. I don't think you extend Jonathan India. Tyler Stevenson. Brian B. said he wouldn't extend him because of his power numbers. I'm not worried about the power. I'm not. I think Tyler Stevenson's a great hitter. I'm more worried about the injuries. Because that's the only way that these contracts don't work out is if they're constantly off the field. If they're on the field and giving whatever they can give, then it works. It's the only way. Tyler Stevenson, tears an ACL, is gone for another year, stuff like that, then it doesn't work. And that's why I wouldn't extend Tyler Stevenson. I would just ride out their years of control and then work from there. But we'll see what the Cincinnati Reds do. Nick Kroll. I think there's going to be more extensions coming. I think Nick Lodolo is going to be next. You might see Jonathan India. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, so you guys touched on Skyline and Gold Star a bit. Obviously, it was announced yesterday that the Bengals were foregoing their contract, or the contract was ending with Gold Star, and now they are officially sponsored by Skyline. I personally have always thought that the Skyline versus Gold Star debate, whatever you want to call it, the hate that Gold Star gets, the debate about which is better, I don't care. It seems so weird. It seems so tired. And I truly don't even understand where it comes from. Because if you have both, if you're a fan of Cincinnati chili, they're both good.
Oh, God.
They're both good.
You're just wrong.
This elitist over here.
You're just wrong.
They're both good.
I agree with you.
What you just don't like? You just like the taste is weird, or what?
Yeah. Like the Gold Star taste is.
How many times have you had Gold Star?
When I was like between the ages of like 6 and 10, I ate Gold Star a lot because there was one convenient, and I just didn't. I couldn't do it. It's just the cheese isn't great, the chili's not great, the burgers are good, but if we're gonna call it a chili place, maybe we rebrand as a burger place because the burgers are elite. The burgers are really good. Maybe the best fast food burger in the city. I don't know. I don't know if I can shame McDonald's like that. But they're good. But the chili, I mean, I eat it too much. I eat Skyline like 3 times a week. Like, I love Cincinnati chili.
I know everyone, listen, I can taste the difference. Truly can. And I'm not going to make that argument that you can't taste the difference. They taste the same. You can taste the difference. I would like to do a blind taste test. And I'm not just talking those two. I'm throwing more chili dogs in there. I'm talking Blue Ash Chili. What are some other Cincinnati chili places? Mount Washington Chili.
Empress. Price Hill Chili.
Price Hill Chili.
Yeah.
Is it Camp Washington Chili? I think that's what
yeah,
not Mount Washington. Getting all of these on top of Skyline and Gold Star. And you know what I want you to do? If I get all of them lined up, a coney from each place, I want you to determine which one is Skyline. If I lined up 6 conies from 6 different places, I want you to rank them, and I want you to tell me which one's Skyline. Now, if I did Gold Star and Skyline back to back, you could probably tell the difference. You can probably say, oh, this tastes like Skyline. But if I have 6, and you take a bite of each one, no way in God's green earth do I think you can immediately take a bite and go like, that's definitely Skyline. I think you'll get it wrong. I think you'll all get it wrong.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the argument, though, because I think you're right.
But it's so much better. It's so much better. But you can't tell because if I give you 6 different ones, you're going to be taking a bite of it and go, oh, yeah, this one's a lot better.
Yeah, but Skyline's convenient. Like, I have to go out of my way to go to Price Hill Chili. I have to go out of my way to go to Blue Ash Chili. There's 2 Blue Ash Chilies. Now, luckily, there's one close to my house. But, like, I go to Blue Ash Chili a lot. I try to, I enjoy it. I go pretty often. And, I mean, if you're giving me the option between all of them, like, I haven't even tried all of them. So maybe there is one better. I'm just purely talking between Skyline and Gold Star. But I think you'd find a lot of Cincinnati people that would probably like one of the local spots more. I don't think there's a bad argument there. I think you're probably right on that.
The talk about the Gold Star Skyline thing isn't just that one's better. It's that one is sent from God himself and the other one was made in the fiery depths of hell. That's what it seems like. You know what it almost compares itself to? It feels like a marketing thing more than anything. It really does. Because somehow Skyline, I don't know if I think they were the first to market. And they just put so much more time, effort, and money into their marketing to where it has become synonymous with the city of Cincinnati. I don't think that was a residual of it being the best chili. I think that it just became the first to expand. I think it was the first to put all the money in.
Yep.
So now it has just become Skyline Cincinnati, Skyline Cincinnati, Skyline Cincinnati. It has nothing to do with the actual product. And the comparison I was going to give it to is in beer, and I hate to bring this up in the lieu of what's going on. If you took a Busch Light and a Bud Light, and you poured them in 4 red Solo cups, half a beer, and two of them were Busch Light, 2 of them were Bud Light, you could not tell me which was which.
No.
You could not tell me which was which. You know how I know? Because I've done it. And you know how I know? Because our boss, Sean Spurlock, has done that a half dozen times to his friends, and they have never gotten it right. The reason you think Bud Light is better is 2 reasons. 1 is marketing, 2, the price. The price is sometimes its own marketing thing. Not to get into the weeds of marketing here, but if you make something a little more expensive, they're going to think it's a little better. It's just a simple fact of the matter. And I know Skyline, it's all a marketing thing. It's all a marketing ploy. And I saw Paul sent a text this morning or last night, and I've seen people tweet about this already. Now the Bengals can do some real winning. Who has done more winning recently than the Bengals? And they were the only Gold Star left. They were the only Gold Star team. The Muskies are Skyline. They've been a wagon in the postseason. Cincinnati Bearcats basketball have been a wagon. The Reds have been a wagon in the postseason. In the regular season.
Bengals have been good for 2 years.
Bengals have made the postseason. The Bengals have been good for 2 decades. They've been good for 2 decades. They won 10 games 5 straight years last decade.
I know.
And people have already forgotten about it. They're better now.
If you're going to make the Reds or Xavier or Cincinnati argument, I mean, it's the same. That's all the same argument if you're really going to make that argument.
No one has been more successful than the Bengals over the past 3 decades.
Oh,
that's a fact.
I would push back on that.
Who has been more successful?
I mean, if you're talking, what are you talking? Regular season? Just in general. I mean,
who has been more successful than the Bengals over the past 3 decades?
I guess I don't put as much stock in regular season success as you do. They make the postseason, okay. They flame out in a wild card.
They won 10 games, and they've won the division in the most challenging division in NFL for 5 years.
I know, but
they've won it.
You could say the same thing. I mean, Cincinnati football makes the college football playoff 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was great.
They have one good season, whatever. But they've been building. They, make the Sugar Bowl back in 08, 09, whatever. Xavier consistently makes the postseason.
I'll pose the question again.
The Reds have made the postseason.
Who has been more successful than the Bengals over the past 3 decades?
It has to be one of the college basketball teams, if you ask me. So let's just start there.
It's not the Bearcats. The Muskies, maybe.
You could probably say Xavier is like comparable, but neither. I don't know. I guess I put way more into. And admittedly, I know this. I put way more stock into postseason success. Like I would never buy like a Bengals AFC champion shirt. Like I would never buy a Xavier like Sweet 16. Like get me to the Final Four, get me to winning a Super Bowl. Like I put way more stock into like winning at the top than like enjoying the regular season. I admittedly like I'm kind of bad as being a sports fan like that. I understand that. But I don't know. I see where you're coming from, but I guess I would put more into postseason.
So,
success.
I mean, so you are really pushing that Xavier has been the most successful team in the past 3 decades? Because that's the only thing that I hear you. I want you to answer the question is what I'm asking. Who has been more successful than the Bengals? You're dancing around it. I want you to answer.
The answer that came to mind was, which is not right, because I was thinking back, they just haven't made the postseason enough, would have been the Reds. They just haven't made the postseason enough.
The Reds have made the postseason 3 times in the past 3 decades.
They just haven't made the postseason enough.
4 times.
So
it's 1 in 7 years.
I was just trying to think and make sure I wasn't forgetting anybody.
You know what's really funny about this conversation? It's like almost like jinxes exist. If Gold Star's there, we win, guys. They affect the.
I'm not kidding you. I got Gold Star to eat 2 days ago, or Sunday. I guess it's 3 days ago now. I got it on Sunday, and for some reason in my mind, I saw their little pamphlet that they're the official sponsor of the Bengals. Obviously, that's gone. And in my mind, I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. I thought in my mind, I said, the Bengals, Gold Star, has been the official chili of the team that wins here in town, or that has been winning here in town. All the other, Skyline's been the official chili of everybody else. I don't believe in luck, but is Gold Star good luck? That's what came in my mind. And that's just me trying to stretch my opinion about Gold Star better than Skyline.
I thought you were being serious when you said that, because I don't see the Bengals as like a winning franchise. I know they get to the postseason, but until the last 2 years, they've shifted that. But like up until the last 2 years. Well, I'm not saying like any team has had like a ton of success. I'm not trying to advocate that. I guess the first team that would have the Reds came to mind, but obviously then as I sat there and went through it, they don't make the postseason enough. Xavier hasn't made the Final Four. UC basketball hasn't been relevant. UC football really hasn't been relevant in general. But I mean, I guess just in general, Cincinnati sports haven't had all that much success in the last.
And who has been the most successful?
That's gotta be
This goes back to what people were yelling about 2 years ago or 3 years ago when Joe Burrow got drafted, and everyone sitting around talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, going like, "This is a poverty franchise. This is all this stuff." The Bengals have been good, folks. They just have for some reason, they're Gold Star. They quite literally are Gold Star. It's the same thing as the Reds. The Reds are Skyline. The Bengals are Gold Star. They're the second team. The Reds were here first. They had winning so long ago. So long ago, I wasn't even born yet. And the Bengals are Gold Star. They're fine. They consistently do the job well, but you just, Cincinnati, the Reds. Go Muskies. Go Bearcats. Meanwhile, a team over at Paycor Stadium just keeps getting it done.
But we'll agree to disagree there.
You're right that Cincinnati as a whole has not been very successful. But the question I asked you was who has been more successful than the Bengals? And you don't until I hear an actual answer come out of your mouth, you just keep tiptoeing around it.
We're not comparing them to the nations or their respective leagues. We're just comparing them to themselves. Are they better than the Reds?
Other teams here in Cincinnati? Yes.
Are they better than UC Bearcat basketball? Yes.
Yes.
Are they better than football? Yes.
Yeah.
They probably are better than Muskies. I don't have that information right in front of me, but
do you want to say that the Muskies have been more successful? You're allowed to say that, Paul, and you might get some stuff in the chat because I feel like that's what you want to say. You can say that. You're allowed to have a take. You're allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah, that would probably be comparable in my mind. just overall success, but like the postseason success, if you want to count second weekends, I guess, they've probably been to the second weekend. Yeah, maybe. But again, like I want to see one of these teams win a title. I don't put as much stock in a regular season as most people do, which is fine. I've just always had that fault. I've been scarred too many times by teams that have been good in the regular season that haven't done anything in the postseason.
Alex Wallace said, take out the last 2 years, the Reds are better than the Bengals over the last three decades. What are you talking about? Go back to 1993, 30 years ago. How are the Reds better than the Bengals?
Since the 90s, like, come on.
I mean, 1990, they won a championship. That was more than 3 decades ago. They're not. They made the postseason in 95. They went to the NLCS. They lost game 163 against the Mets in 1999. They made the postseason in 2010, 2012, 2013, and 2020. And in those years, they had won just 2 playoff games. Lost in the wild card, won the first 2 games against the Giants, then lost 3 in a row, got swept by the Phillies, and got no hit by Roy Halladay. Didn't score a run against the Braves back in 2020. The Bengals not only have been to the postseason more, and now they have to prove it. And even if you take out the last 2 years, I would still say the Bengals have been more successful than the Reds over the past 3 decades.
No, I don't think that's I don't think that's an argument.
That's not a contest.
Really, the only team that came to mind was Xavier. Xavier's made eight second weekends in the last 2 decades. Bengals now have made 9 playoff appearances, and in the last 2 years, you could say the Bengals separated themselves. So, I guess I just get scarred so much from all the consistent one and done appearances for the Bengals that I just don't really see that as success. But they also had to win to get there. So, there is that side of the argument. I just don't like that argument, but that's a valid argument.
All right, I'm done. Go ahead and throw up that tweet from, God, I forget that guy's name all the time, the NFL reporter. I also put it in there about Joe Mixon, and we'll skim through this.
Daner?
No, it's Paul Daner was the guy who wrote it from The Athletic, but that's not who the tweet's from. It's from
Kleinman?
Yep, Kleinman. Basically, Paul Daner put out a tweet just beating home the points that we've been talking about on this show, on Off the Bench, with Trace on Box Lunch, that we've been talking about for months, and that's Joe Mixon and what's going to happen with him. You can't read it. That's the article that Paul Daner has right there, and it says, his next step involved the conclusion of the essentially just saying that Joe Mixon's got to take a pay cut or he's going to be asked to let go. So all the point I want to make right here is that our worst fears are no more. We've sat in this chair and talked. We've sat in those chairs over there. You guys have sat in those and talked about the Joe Mixon situation. And the worst fear was that he plays on his $12 million contract. That's not going to happen. And that's the only point I want to make, is that our worst fears are gone. They're not going to happen. Joe Mixon's not going to take up $12 million this year. He's going to take a pay cut or he's going to be shown the door. And I'm not going to make an opinion on which I think is more likely, because I think either one could happen. I think if I'm Joe Mixon, you got to read the writing on the wall and say, and just realize that you've either got to take this pay cut or you're going to be looking for a job, and maybe it's going to be tough for him looking for a job. But Mixon's going to be shown the door, or he's going to be playing for like $3 million, $4 million. All right, so I have an interesting question about the AFC North. So there was news yesterday about the Steelers getting Allen Robinson, and a lot of people made not a lot to do about Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson struggled last year going to, a team that really didn't have a quarterback, right? He played for the Rams last year.
Yep.
And he was very successful. I think he might be the Chicago Bears' all-time leading receiver. But he struggled last year, and now he's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think quietly, are building one of the best teams in the division. I know it's not a super sexy signing or trade, but I think I can make the opinion, I can make the take that the Baltimore Ravens have the worst roster in the AFC North. I think I can make that pretty sure-handedly. The Bengals, they're the best team in the North right now. I don't think no one can argue that. The Browns still have this super talented roster. Now, they're the Browns, so they lose a lot. It's just in their DNA at this point. You look top to bottom between the Steelers and the Ravens? Who's got the better roster? I think it's the Steelers. Better pass rush. They got a veteran piece on the perimeter. I think Kenny Pickett is going to be a fine quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a stud, but I think he's going to be a guy who plays in this league for a long time. He has shown signs of greatness. He's also looked very bad at times, but Kenny Pickett, I think, is going to be fine. They won with Kenny Pickett. That's one thing. I mean, you can look at wins and losses as a starting quarterback as a whatever stat, but it means something when you're taking the snaps and they win ball games. And who the heck is going to play quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens? If Lamar Jackson is going to be the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens next year, then I have no problem. I'll secede my argument that they are better than the Steelers. I think the Browns are still pretty good. They stink, but they're pretty good. But if you're asking me if I'd rather have Kenny Pickett or Tyler Huntley, I'm taking Kenny Pickett 100 times out of 100. I don't know where the Tyler Huntley talk about how he might be good. I don't know how he made a Pro Bowl. I don't know where all this came from. He has shown nothing but to be a bad quarterback. Casey.
Yep.
You think the Ravens are better than the Steelers?
No, I actually agree with you. I think the Ravens have the worst roster. I agree with that.
Thank you.
I thought
I make such good points, so how can you not?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that they were like the second best roster, which maybe I do agree with that too. I don't know.
The Browns. I don't know who the second team is, who the second tier team is, but the Browns aren't the worst. We can agree on that. They're not the worst. They're either second or third. It just depends on how you favor them. But go on with your point.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, but I don't think the AFC North this year is a little bit maybe people will respect the Steelers in this regard that they've never had a losing season in like the past, 20 years or whatever it is, 10, 18, 15, whatever seasons Tomlin's been there.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think the AFC North is as good as it's been in the past. I think the Bengals are the clear favorites. I think the Ravens are in shambles. And I remember talking about this, that I somewhat predicted this to happen in the regular season. I'm talking about why would the Ravens even sign Lamar Jackson? And
right.
We're seeing that unfold right now. The Browns, to me, I don't believe in Deshaun Watson right now. He hasn't shown us anything to make you believe in him. So the only team that has any upside in this division, to me, is the Steelers. And that's if Kenny Pickett improves. And he didn't show a whole lot last year either. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think this year the AFC North is a little bit worse. And we're not even mentioning the pieces that the Ravens lost on defense. They lost pieces on defense. They lost Calais Campbell. They're going to lose or they already lost Marcus Peters, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah, those two are really big, vital pieces. Other than that, I agree with what you said. I think the Ravens are the worst. They're worse than the AFC North.
Casey, we disagree so much. You guys don't even know. These cameras turn off. Me and Casey, we go at it like dogs and cats. I mean, it's constant bickering. We've come to odds. We've come toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose before. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed. That's why we have Paul in the room to settle us down.
It's true.
But I appreciate you saying that you agree with me because you know what? The Ravens They're the worst. The Browns, they're just so talented, man, and they just lose. That's all they do. Casey, oh, man. Paul, do you hate the Browns, or do you just like have the shtick where like they stink?
I don't truly care. The only team in the NFL that I truly dislike and don't care about is the Steelers, and then everybody else, whatever.
So I went to school in Northern Ohio, and everyone's a Browns fan. You leave Dayton, and everyone's a Browns fan here in the state. So I had to hear about the Browns, and this was when they're at their worst. I'm talking, this is when they won one of 34 games, and still every week it's dog check. Here we go, Brownies. So, I mean, I'm just hearing about them, and they're telling me how bad the Bengals are. This whole 9 yards. So it's just a sour taste in my mouth for the Bengals, or for the Browns. The Browns recently had news that they're going to renovate their stadium. The other team that I have a sour taste in my mouth from going to school in Northern Ohio is Ohio State, because that's what everyone's obsessed with. So I just became a hater because, I mean, I just had to hear about Ohio State. One of the sites that they talked about, because the Browns are going to have to play in another city going forward, is the Horseshoe. They might play Browns games in Columbus, which I think makes the most sense. I mean, the stadium's much bigger than their stadium, the Horseshoe is. But I still think they'll do great. They're still very well accounted for in the city of Columbus. My personal hell, I think, is the Bengals losing to the Browns in Ohio Stadium in the Horseshoe. I don't think I could come back from that as a Bengals fan. I don't think I can come back from that as an Ohio State hater. I don't think I could come back from that just period, point blank. Golly, man. That would
hurt.
Yeah. I can't do it. And I'd have to go. If they're playing in the Horseshoe against the Browns, I'd have to go. And I'm just setting myself up for just utter misery if they do lose.
And what stinks about that is Joe Burrow has a losing record against the stinking Browns. So,
but Joe Burrow's a Buckeye, so I mean, he might just show out, right? He might
show out.
He's got a degree. Whatever. Paul, Casey, you guys got any baseball bets today?
I haven't even looked.
I gotta be honest, guys. When I thought the show was going to be at 12, I had something planned for us that I thought was going to be a lot of fun. So at 12:35, the Reds' first pitch was supposed to happen, and we were going to sweat a Nerfy live.
Ooh.
Obviously, wrenches got thrown in to that plan, so we're not gonna be sweating that Nerfy anymore. But I still might bet it just because why not? What are the odds on that?
What if instead of us being live, why don't we keep track of it maybe in the Discord or something?
Yeah.
Or
guys,
have we posted the Discord link in a while?
I'll be honest, I haven't. I got to get back in the Discord. It's been a while.
We should keep track of it. Just we'll be in the Discord. We're keeping track of it. Every single pitch, we're gonna react to it. So.
Honestly, the only Discord thing that I see now is the Sir Bombs. I check those and that's it. Just to make sure I'm up on stuff. No joke, Sir Boy Wonder, if you're listening. That's all I do because sometimes I miss stuff.
My notifications, I went into them because I set them to @, and I turned on notifications for a couple of different channels, but the main one, the Sir Bomb channel, that's the only one that absolutely at all times needs to be turned on because you will not know what happens around all the different leagues without that being turned on.
I can't figure out how to turn on the notifications for each channel because I used to be in Discord so much that I changed the apps that I wouldn't get badges, notifications, nothing.
Yeah.
So then I tried to go back and reset those settings, and now it's all screwed up, and I can't figure it out because that's what I wanted to do too.
I was going to say, guys, let's get in the Discord. 12:35, Nerfy. It is plus money, which is never good.
Oh, shit.
It is plus 105. We got a rook on the mound for the Reds facing off against the best offense in Major League Baseball. But it's plus 105 for no runs in that first inning. I'm betting I'm going to get off this show, and I'm gonna put the bet in. I'll put the bet slip in the Discord. Let's have some fun, sir boy. You said twist your arm. This is me twisting your arm. This is me. Go ahead. Bet responsibly, though. Because we are responsible gamblers here. And we are presented by Betfred Sportsbook. So make sure to bet it through. The best book here in Cincinnati. See, there's no Skyline versus Gold Star debate when it comes to sportsbook. Because it's just true. Betfred. Betfred Sportsbook is the book of Cincinnati. All right. Wheel of Lunch. What are we eating, boys?
Put Sonic up there.
Got to put Sonic up there.
I actually almost went to Sonic yesterday on the way to Miami.
They've got good chili dogs.
All right, here we go. I got to set it up real quick.
I had the chili there. I feel like I did have their chili there one time.
All right, let's turn
Sir
this
boy,
on.
we will be elites and the handlebar soon.
Oh, I've never done the handlebar. I did the well, it's all like the same club.
So the only time I've ever been in there was Mariana's dad. They had a work event there. And it was all taken care of and everything like that. She said he couldn't go, so me and Mariana go there. They have these lounge chairs overlooking the field. And in between, like, each couch, I guess is what it would be called, was just a trough full of beer. I mean, you're telling me a 22-year-old Reed, just didn't have the time of his life at that Reds game?
But
Had a blast.
There's the whole dining area where you get all you can eat food.
Yeah, I haven't been there. I don't know how it's set up for the handlebar.
Is that separate from the handlebar? Because that's all over on that side of the stadium.
On the right side of that field, I don't know. It's $75. All you can eat food. Six beer tickets.
Gotcha.
6 drink tickets.
Okay.
Which is, if you're gonna have a day at the ballpark, might as well. Panda.
Oh God, Panda.
We said we'd try it a third time.
We did.
Subplace.
No, throw Chipotle up there. Throw
Jollies.
Jollies. We haven't had Jollies in a while.
Jollies. Yeah, all right.
Culver's.
Oh man, I could smash Culver's.
All right, that's good. That looks like a good list. Put Sonic in there again.
Just for
2 for Sonic.
2 for Sonic.
2 Sonics.
Whoa.
This is how committed we are to Mouse Cop.
This is gonna be a backbreaker if it doesn't roll. All right, good start. I'm willing to give it a third shot, though. I'm willing to give it a third shot.
I'm excited for Sonic.
Oh, I was talking about Panda.
Oh, well, Panda's gone.
That's what I mean. I said I'm willing to give Panda a third shot, but not now. Skyline gone.
Good.
I just had it.
Garbage out of here.
I just had it.
Me and Casey are being cornered into hating Skyline when Skyline's still good chili. That's what's elite about the Skyline haters is they won't even stoop to Gold Star. Oh, sorry,
I would go. I just don't have any near me anymore. I tore it down.
They're expanding here in Hamilton.
No.
No, I have not tried Buckaboo's. Bubba Coos, the new burrito place here in town.
Brutal.
Burrito don't sound too bad.
Oh, no. Mouse Cop.
See
We even gave you 2 opportunities.
Yep, that's
There's not a Gold Star around here. Because we've tried this before. Gold Star has won. Would be funny if it won it. Oh.
Don't have to worry about
Jollies
it.
or Chipotle.
There's pretty good options.
Those are winners in my book. Looks like we're going to
Chipotle. That's where we'll be sweating out our nerfy. All right.
Sick. Good show, everybody.
This was fun. So just to wrap up, the Reds should extend. Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft. Gold Star is the winning chili here in Cincinnati. Mixon shouldn't be coming back. Our worst fears are gone that he at least won't come back for $12 million. The Ravens are the worst team in the AFC North. We're going to bet a nerfy, and we'll see you all on Friday.
Chat Power Ranks on Friday?
Chat Power Rankings on Friday. And I gotta say something. Just so it's not a shock to the system.
Uh-oh.
It is Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. And Leif Erikson has not shown up in the chat yet. He has not shown up in the chat yet. So he's got till Friday to show up in the chat, or else he's kicked out of the power rankings. You got to be in there. You got to be in it to win it. But this has been Box Lunch presented by Betfred Sportsbook. We'll see you guys all on Friday.